Power panel now. Fox News political analyst Gianno Caldwell, former Democratic New York State Senator David Carlucci. David and Gianno, great to see you both. David, I'm going to come to you first.
Great to be with you, Harris.
This is not that complicated for Pete Buttigieg. When I talked with his people last week, the FRA, the group working alongside the NTSB, the FRA for rail is actually in his purview. It's in his department. So that part about, well, it's not exactly my job, isn't true.
Well, I believe Buttigieg is getting criticism because he is probably the most high-profile Secretary of Transportation that we've ever had. And Republicans see him as a competitor, as a potential presidential candidate, a rising star in the Democratic Party. So he's one that they have to attack. So I think regardless of where Buttigieg is, he's going to get criticism. But look, he's the only Secretary of Transportation that's been on site at a derailment, come to find out. But this is an increasing issue. I hope that the silver lining here in the devastation that's happened in Ohio is that we put an end to this. We're looking at technology that they're using not from 2023, but from 1923. We still have rails that have open containers hauling waste through our communities. We have rail crossings that have not been upgraded in decades. So this is a potential disaster to get worse.
Let me jump in there real quickly.
Happened last year.
This president has touted more than once infrastructure and how he got it passed. And sometimes he includes Republicans and sometimes he forgets that they helped. But nonetheless, it's infrastructure. Well, we got infrastructure problems, and David just laid it out. Spend some cash out of what he signed. Jono?
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to have to wholeheartedly disagree with David's assertion that there's criticism about Pete Buttigieg somehow because he's a competitor of Republicans. Let's not forget that Pete Buttigieg failed when it came to the FAA grounding the planes for over 2 hours. Let's not forget about the Southwest debacle. Let's not forget about how he only decides to show up to this site of this derailment that day after President Trump. So you mean to tell me you let a former president without any federal powers beat you to the punch? I mean, he is a key example, I think, for Democrats of what an empty suit looks like. He's also a key example of what you get when you hire somebody based on identity politics. This man, who Democrats do have some thoughts around being president one day, is failing at the job, and the American people are seeing it before their own eyes. And unfortunately, it's with harm to them because the chemical spill is a very, very serious situation for those that live in Ohio.
Well, and you've got the supply chain issues that you've had, and I've heard him say, you know, and his team say, well, we're not in charge of baby formula. He had newborn babies at the time. If anybody ought to cared about parents who needed baby formula, it should have been him. I mean, that should have been just a softball, just lean into that wind and say, look, I want to bring my bully pulpit to this issue. David and Gianno, great to talk with you today. I'll bring you back. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.